Hey, 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 everyone. Welcome. How's it going today? Welcome, welcome. So, drop in the chat where you're joining from, not just your city, but like, where are you? Are you in the kitchen, in a conference room, on a train? Let me know where you're zooming in from today. I want to hear from y'all. Let's see here. Yes. Yes, for everyone who's just joining, I would love to hear where you're zooming in from and not just the city. Let me know. Are you in the kitchen, in the office, in a conference room, on a train? Maybe you're in an airport waiting area to board. Type it in the chat. I want to see. Okay, Portland, Oregon, Dayton, Ohio, in the office. Fantastic. I see folks are here, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Okay, so we're pretty much spread out across the US, which is great. So listen, y'all, I have you for about 28 more minutes, and I have a lot that I want to cover with you. I see more people are dropping in, Washington, D.C., at my home office, in the attic. Very descriptive. I love that. Love seeing where you all are. So let me give you the rundown of what we're going to do today. This is our intro. I'm going to share with you a quick story about how I mastered the latte method to pinpoint what decision makers want. And then we're going to spend about 14 minutes on a map. I want you to pressure test this solution for yourself. So, how many of you need to get a yes from a decision maker within the next 30 days? Just put a one in the chat. And out of those who need to get a yes from a decision maker in the next 30 days, give me a +1 if you're not exactly sure how to do that. All right. I just want to see where we are so I know how much detail we need to jump into for our session today. Quite a few people with the +1s. Perfect. So you are in the right room. I'm going to walk you through this step by step. At the end of our 30 minutes together, you're going to have a framework that you're starting to customize during our time together to move you closer to that yes. Now, at the end of that 14 minutes, I'm going to tell you very quickly how you can work with me deeper, and then I'm going to spend 10 minutes on Q&A. So we're spending 25 of our minutes together in deep work and reflection. So let me tell you a little bit about what happened and how I got to pinpoint this problem and the solution. I was 3 months into managing a global project with teams across 4 time zones. I felt like we really hit it. We were nailing our project. And then the senior leader, every Monday morning, we showed up in the meeting, and this person would switch the objective. On Tuesday, it was something different. By Wednesday, y'all, we were spinning our heads. The goalposts were not just moving, the goalposts were doing laps around the field. So my team, they were frustrated, and I was frustrated, not at the team, but more so at the situation. And what I couldn't figure out is, how are we delivering excellence and not getting a yes? We kept getting an almost, but maybe. And that's really frustrating. I saw my team members who were very like dedicated and they love doing their work. They started second guessing themselves. And one person even told me, Jacqueline, I don't know what we're missing, but we're just not getting it right. So in this process, I said, I cannot let my team drown, and I can't like pull my hair out. What can I do? So I went back to the notes, because this decision maker, like I said, every meeting, it was a different focus. I pulled up my notes from the last 3 meetings and I started reviewing them. What am I missing here? What's the missing link? And y'all, I filtered it through the latte process, which I'm going to share with you in just a second. From that, I realized, even though things were feeling frantic and out of freight in each meeting, something that was happening was on the surface was two things. It was two things that they wanted related to timeline and related to delivery. So that next meeting, we started the meeting with that one metric, and we led with how we were going to solve that gap. Within 15 minutes, we got a yes. And I could not believe it. I have been spinning my wheels for months, and in 15 minutes, we moved from not yet to absolutely. So, if you've ever had a situation like that, put a one in the chat. Let me know. Am I alone with this or not? So, I'm going to show you what it looks like when I put my notes together. You can take a screenshot of this because this is actually the playbook that I use. And it's not the same situation because I can't share that client's insight, but I ran the same latte framework through the AT&T scenario where the CEO announced a few weeks ago that everyone had to get themselves back to the office or else. So that's what you see here. But what we're going to work on together is actually this spreadsheet in front of you. And what I've done is I've just dropped into the chat a link. I want you to copy this link and open up the spreadsheet so we can walk through that scenario together. So for all of you who just said, hey, I need to get a yes from a decision maker and I'm not quite sure how to get there, I'm going to actually walk you through this spreadsheet. And we're going to spend about 14 minutes or so on this. So I'm just going to jump out of this screen just for a moment. I'm going to open up this doc with y'all and walk you through it step by step. All right, once you have that document open, go ahead and put a one in the chat just so I know y'all are tracking with me. Let me see where y'all are at. You have it open. Fantastic. All right, so how do you get through the latte framework? Okay, y'all are tracking with me. Perfect. So latte stands for look, anticipate, think, talk, and evaluate. You can apply this negotiation framework to just about any scenario, but to pinpoint what a decision maker wants, you can fill in this matrix with as much information as you have and that you can get. If you have any blank spaces, that's where you notice you need to come back to. So we're going to start with look. This is where we're pulling facts and data. In this first spreadsheet here, in this first tab, we want to identify a single business objection that your decision maker speaks about. Now, what I hear most of the time is, Jacqueline, my decision maker has a lot of priorities. That's true for all of us. But there's typically a single issue that they're focused on. That's the thing that keeps the leader up at night. And it can be things like revenue growth, cost control, customer retention, compliance, innovation, fill in the blank. What I want you to do here on your spreadsheet is type in that single business objective that keeps your decision maker up at night. Now, once we do that, we're going to move over to A4, cell A4. And this is where I want you to list the exact metrics they review each week. It could be profit margin, churn, engagement scores, etc. List those metrics in the bucket. So think about your team one-on-ones or your one-on-ones. What are those things that are coming up often? That's what you want to put in A4. In A5, this is where a lot of people skip, and I want to emphasize you really want to focus on this. Type in this box the strategic initiatives that are present for your leader. What's pressing? What are they constantly emailing about, talking about in team meetings? What are they talking about in informal meetings? This is going to be your secret sauce to pinpoint what they want. This is where you're going to map whatever solution that you're presenting to their ideas. This is going to help them solve their problem and help you get to the point where you're presenting it in their language. So for those of you who have questions, like I said, I'm saving 10 minutes for Q&A at the end. But if you drop a question in the chat now, I'm just going to park and lock and come back to it in a few minutes, okay? So in A6, you want to confirm the budget timing and the limits so you know when funds are available or when they're freezing up. For any of these boxes where you don't have a direct answer today, just leave it blank and put color code it so you can come back and fill it in. And here's one of the ones that I have realized that works really well for those who are still spinning their wheels. They're getting not yet, and they want to get closer to a yes. You got to spot the inner circle of your decision maker. So, who's around them? Are there mentors, analysts, a chief of staff? Who's in their ear and who's helping them make decisions? Because you also have to make sure that your solution is speaking to those key decision makers as well. So list the people in the inner circle. Now, that last slide that I showed you, I'm going to go back to that in a minute. It gives you a breakdown of what I identified for AT&T, so you can see how to make this work in real time for yourself. So once you walk through anticipate, the next thing that you want to do is start jumping in and anticipating objections. A lot of times I'm working with mid-career professionals and they're telling me, Jacqueline, I left that meeting, but I should have said this or that. How many of y'all can relate? Type yes if you can relate to that in the chat. So when we walk through the second stage of latte, which is anticipate, what we're doing is we're starting to think through those objections up front, and not only thinking through them, we're preparing a response so we're not caught off guard. So the first thing that you want to do is predict the very first objection that person will raise. It can be cost, risk, headcount, etc. Whatever it is, list the very first objection and then prepare a data-backed response to it. All of these things are helping you move to a yes. I see that. I'm not the only one. Y'all have been there too, where you're like, I should have said this or that. All right. Once you do that, you want to move to the second part of anticipate. And this is where you're going to pull to the surface the hidden constraints. It can be political, legal, technical. So think about when your leader says in person, yeah, I like this, let's move forward, but then something happens and they don't advance. That's most likely some hidden constraints that you need to uncover. So list those hidden constraints. A lot of people think this is the most stressful part, but this is a key driver in getting your decision maker to say yes to the proposals that you present. So spend some time on that. I highlighted this box because it can be challenging for most, but once you're able to get through there, boom, you got a lot of ammunition to build a strong case for yourself. Now, moving to step 3 and anticipate, you want to gauge the decision maker's risk tolerance and frame the benefits in a way that matches their priorities. So if we go back to step 1 and look where we're identifying their single business objective, this is where we're starting to connect those dots. Let's see. You can't get the spreadsheet. It's blocked by your org. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you the spreadsheet after, Ashley. Don't worry. I got you covered. All right. So what you want to do then, screenshot this now, Ashley, and you can just kind of fill in some of the blanks as we go on a separate sheet of paper, but I'll make sure you get access to the spreadsheet. So gauge your leader's risk tolerance and frame those benefits. Map this back to look step 1. And then the next layer in anticipate, you want to forecast a short-term win for them that leader can report within 90 days. So now we're really tapping into how are we strategically thinking about moving the needle for the thing that matters most to them. And here's where we're really tapping into that I should have said this or that and strengthening that muscle. I want you to outline fallback options. So things that will still deliver even if your first proposal isn't accepted. So you're going to fill in the box for anticipate. Now we're moving into think. And this is where we begin to align your proposal with 2 or 3 metrics that the leader already tracks. So in step number 1 of look, we identified a single objective. I know that there are multiple priorities for every leader. And this is where you begin to think about the second, third top priorities that leader has and start mapping metrics to that. I'm going to jump down to the most important one that people skip and think, which is drafting a stakeholder map. When you draft your stakeholder map, you want to list, yes, I'm going to put the link to the spreadsheet again. And if you can't open it, go ahead and take a screenshot now, and we're going to come back to it. I'll make sure I email it to you at the end. So, drafting your stakeholder map is where you start to think strategically. How can you get buy-in and support from people around your decision maker? So, for anyone who is influencing the decision maker, whether it's the chief of staff, a mentor, or an analyst in the organization, finance team, whomever, list those people and their objective. When you start building this out, you're now putting together a comprehensive negotiation strategy where you're proving your point fast. So go ahead and type in the key people for your decision maker. Who are the stakeholders around them? Now, I'm going to jump into something with talk where I'm going to share some power phrases with you. This is the second tab of the spreadsheet, and this is your secret weapon to really move the needle forward. So the fourth step in latte is talk. This is where you really want to get your decision maker's attention in 5 minutes or less. I shared with you how after months of stalling, I got a yes in 15 minutes, and this is how I did it in the talk phase. And I'm sharing with you some of the exact power phrases that I've used repeatedly over my career to get more information from the decision maker to get to a yes. If y'all think that's valuable, just let me know in the chat if you want me to share that full doc with you. So, when you get to the talk section, you want to present concrete numbers, percent change on dollars, impact, hours saved, anything like that that's going to help you keep the process moving forward. Okay, quite a few people want the power phrases. I got y'all. Also, you're going to list potential risk and how you're going to mitigate those risks up front. So in the talk phase, let me just hop over to this. These are my top 28 power phrases when I'm using Latte to really get the decision makers to move forward. Take a screenshot of this. I'll send it to you at the end. I know it's a lot. I'll kind of color coded them for myself just for various situations, but you can customize this for yourself as well. What you see here is I have some areas that are bolded. This is where you actually want to take your metrics for your organization that the decision maker lean on a lot and type in your own info. So you can actually use this. Sometimes what I do is I'll come in and I'll copy the actual power phrase, and then I go back to the metrics table and I drop it in here. Okay, so is this helpful? Let me know. I'm going to share this with y'all again, the power phrases, just so you can get another screenshot of a different section. And I'll send this to you in the recap email for today. All right, so let me go back to E and evaluate. I want to close this out. The last step of latte is evaluate. After your meeting, you want to debrief within 24 hours. Now, the way that I uncovered what my challenging person was throwing us in loops and sending us on laps around the football field, I kept really detailed notes. What I was able to do is go back and look at those notes, and I recorded the questions that they asked me and my team members. And that's how I was able to pinpoint out of all of those shifting priorities what mattered most. The answer was hidden in the questions that they asked, not in the shifting priority statements that they led with in the meetings. Okay, so make sure you're taking detailed notes, writing down the questions that are asked. Latte, the fifth step in Latte has 5 steps, but I'm going to tell you right now, recording the questions is the thing that you want to be prepared for the most. So here's a negotiation map that I want you to come back and fill in every time you go through a negotiation. Just like a pilot has a pre-flight checklist, I want you to use this negotiation map as your pre-conversation checklist. My philosophy is that negotiation is a conversation, it's not a battle. And when you're prepared with data and you're speaking to the decision maker in metrics that matter to them, then you really get to the nitty gritty and you start moving the ball forward. So I'm going to stop here. Let me go back to this spreadsheet. This is the document that I shared with you earlier, this influence map. Let me zoom in so you can see my writing small. So you can take a screenshot of this because I actually mapped this out for a situation that I'm not directly involved in, but this is how I would align to a current problem that AT&T is facing, including the stakeholder map and the decision maker. So I mentioned to you earlier, here you can see I've mapped out HR, internal comms, customer service are some of the stakeholders here. So your map can look a little like this. Now, the completed spreadsheet, it might take you an hour to do the first go round, but the more you do this, I guarantee you, you're going to speed up. You're going to pinpoint what the decision maker wants faster. So you can start typing your questions into the chat or come off of mute in a second. On September 22nd, I'm going to be teaching a 3-week course on how to do this for any scenario. I'm going to be working with you directly to build your own playbook. And in 3 weeks, we're going to go from not yet to yes. And we're going to really unpack the influence strategies that earn decision maker approval faster. And this is based on the lessons that I've learned leading a global organization. So if you want to join, there's a 20% off code that's available. I want to hop straight into Q&A. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. What questions do you have? I know I covered a lot, so I'm going to take a quick sip here, and you can come off of mute, or you can type your question in the chat. All right, someone sent me a question directly. Can I show the power phrases again? Absolutely. Let me jump into the power phrases and how you can use them. All right, so the power phrase template, what you want to do is at the end of a meeting, ask your decision maker a few questions, right? So for instance, what the number 23 on my screen, if I anchor and you summarize what you talked about to XYZ priority, will this make it easier to champion? What you're essentially doing is getting some small yeses, priming the pump to be able to move your decision maker closer to supporting your decision. Now, in this metrics table, what you're doing is where I say write an email or a slide the leader can forward up, making it effortless for them to champion your idea. What happens in a lot of situations is your decision maker is just going to forward an email on to someone else, right? So you need to make sure that whomever is receiving that forwarded email understands the problem and the solution right away and makes it easy for them also to buy into that. So that's where you're going to use some of the power phrases to draft an email. Whitney says, I don't have a question, but I appreciate the session. I'm going to dig into that document for sure. Absolutely. So Whitney, what I'll do is at the end of this, I will share with you the document, all 3 tabs, and I'm going to share with you a GPT that I built that's going to help you to walk through some of these different prompts. Now, in a course, when we go through the 3-week course and you're building your own playbook, I'm also going to give you the exact prompts that you want to use if you want to just get there quicker. But I've given you everything that you need today to get to yes. If you go back to that original spreadsheet with those different elements of latte, look, anticipate, think, talk, and evaluate, you yes, there is a custom GPT. I'll share that with you all too when I send the recap email. But now you have everything you need to move your decision maker closer to a yes. The main thing that I want you to know is that you have to map out their number one priority and map your solution into that. A lot of times, mid-career professionals, they'll focus on the solution and they start talking about all of the bells and whistles they built into that solution. And that's great. But your decision maker's number one priority should be the lead in that conversation. So within the first 5 minutes, go back to this matrix that we built and tell them, hey, this is the initiative that you're focused on, or this is the thing that's keeping you up at night. Here's how we solve for that. And when you do that using this latte framework, now you're negotiating and it feels like a conversation. You're not adversarial. You don't need boxing gloves, and you're able to move through really quickly. Are there any more questions? And I'm going to pause for a second for anyone who wants to come off of mute and ask a question. All right, well, this was great. I promised I would get you in and out within 30 minutes, so I'll send the replay. I know I covered a lot of info in very fast format, but I had to do that to get us in and out completely in this time. Oh, I see some questions here. I'll stay around and answer. Let's see. Recommendations for phrasing this work into meetings with leaders, like one for discovery, then another for presenting. Laura, do you mind coming off of mute and giving me a little bit of context? Is that possible?
Yeah, no, not at all. No problem. I was just kind of curious, like, how would you phase this in terms of like having a meeting with a leader to like find out all of their priorities and then like setting up a follow-up to do your kind of like pitch recommendations? I feel like I've worked with a lot of leaders that are like very quick to be like, yep, nope. So even when you're in that discovery phase, they shut you down.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So, as I said before with evaluate, this is where you're going to go back to your notes from your previous meetings, because there's not a lot of time for you to do this discovery. So, if you go back and you look at your notes from past meetings, that's phase one. That's going to give you insight into that leader. The other thing that you can do, Laura, is in terms of when do you give, phase it out, this is where you're spotting the inner circle and you're drafting your stakeholder map. Because if you can't get to that decision maker to do discovery, you can talk to the people around them, their chief of staff, their analysts, whomever they're working closely with, and you do some of the discovery with the stakeholders around them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Great question. All right. Any other questions? All right, so my email is on the slides. If you have any questions, once you start working through this and really unpacking it for yourself, feel free to drop me an email. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can message me on LinkedIn. I hang out there a lot. Happy to answer your questions. So let me just close out with what we covered today, because I know we went through quite a bit. So you learned how to use the latte method and the 5 steps. You also practice, if you were filling in those boxes, pinpointing what your decision makers want most, and you're linking your ask directly to their metrics, priorities, and objections. And then you're walking away with this 1-page negotiation map, which I'm going to email you, that you can fill in and use for every conversation that you have to move the needle forward. So don't skip a step, y'all. 9 times out of 10, when people skip a step, they tend to come back like, oh my goodness, if I would have done that, my conversation would have gone so much smoother. So don't skip a step when you use the map. And I've given you some instructions here on how to further customize this if you have any questions. Thanks for spending time with me. Y'all have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.